The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stood empty, except for the 17 representatives who had gathered in emergency session. Ambassador Kelrix of the Vrex hegemony tapped his clawed fingers against the crystalline table, creating a rhythm that echoed through the vast hall. He was not alone in his impatience. "They have been silent for 48 hours now," Kelrix said, his voice carrying the sharp edge of someone who enjoyed delivering bad news. "Not a single transmission from any human world. Not one ship has left their territory. The humans have simply stopped talking." The other ambassadors shifted in their seats. Some looked concerned. Others looked pleased. Humanity had always been difficult to work with in the Council. They asked too many questions. They challenged too many decisions. They insisted on representing smaller species who had no real power. Now, perhaps the humans had finally realized they were not as important as they believed. Commander Thess of the Crystalline Collective leaned forward, her translucent body catching the light from the chamber's central column. "Perhaps they have encountered an internal crisis, civil war maybe, or a plague. Their medical systems are primitive compared to ours." "Or perhaps they have simply grown tired of galactic politics," suggested High Speaker Vorna of the Delphic Union. "Humanity has always been overly emotional. They take everything so seriously. Maybe they decided to isolate themselves and focus on their own affairs." Kelrix smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Whatever the reason, this presents opportunities. The humans control 17 systems along the outer rim. Rich systems, strategic systems. If they are withdrawing from galactic affairs, those systems should not remain under the control of a species that refuses to participate in council governance." Several ambassadors nodded in agreement. The human colonies were indeed valuable. New Britannia alone produced rare elements that were essential for faster-than-light travel. If humanity was retreating, then those resources should be redistributed to species who would use them responsibly. "We should send investigation teams," Vorna suggested. "Diplomatic missions to confirm the situation before we make any decisions." "I agree," Kelrix said, though his tone suggested he had already made his decision. "The hegemony will send observers to the nearest human colonies. We will report back to the Council within the week." At the far end of the table, a figure stirred. The Keeper had been so still that most of the ambassadors had forgotten it was there. The Keepers were an ancient race, older than any records could verify. They rarely spoke, and when they did, it was usually to share warnings that nobody wanted to hear. "Do not approach human space," the Keeper said, its voice like wind through empty caves. "Not yet," Kelrix laughed. "With respect, Keeper, the humans are one species among thousands. They have been part of the Council for less than 200 years. They are children in galactic terms. If they are having problems, it is the responsibility of the elder species to investigate and assist." "You do not assist," the Keeper replied. "You seek to claim." The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. Kelrix's smile faded. "The hegemony acts in the best interests of the galaxy. If humanity has abandoned its responsibilities, those responsibilities must be assumed by others." The Keeper rose slowly from its seat. "I have seen 3 species go silent in my lifetime. 2 were dying. 1 was preparing. You would be wise to determine which applies to humanity before you act." With that, the Keeper glided from the chamber, leaving an uncomfortable silence behind it. "Superstitious nonsense," Kelrix muttered. "The Keepers always speak in riddles. We have a practical situation that requires practical solutions." The council session ended with a vote. Observation missions would be sent to human space. Multiple species would participate to ensure transparency. If humanity did not respond within 1 week, the Council would assume they had withdrawn from galactic affairs and act accordingly. 3 days later, the first probe entered the New Britannia system. It was a standard Council observation device, equipped with every sensor known to galactic science. It transmitted data as it approached the colony world, showing normal stellar activity, standard planetary readings, and evidence of active cities on the surface. Then, as it crossed the orbit of the system's outermost planet, the probe's signal stopped. Not gradually, not with any indication of malfunction. It simply ceased to exist as far as the Council's receivers were concerned. A second probe was sent. Same result. It reached nearly the same position and vanished without a trace. Equipment failure, Kelrix insisted when the results were reported. Or perhaps the humans have established some kind of defensive perimeter. We need to send manned missions, ships with proper crews who can report what they observe. The Council approved the missions, though with less enthusiasm than before. Something about the clean, complete disappearance of the probes troubled even the most confident ambassadors. It was not how defensive systems usually worked. Weapons left debris. Energy shields caused scatter. These probes had not been destroyed. They had simply stopped existing. The Vrex Hegemony dispatched a scout ship with a crew of 20. It was a fast vessel, lightly armed, designed for observation rather than combat. The crew was experienced and professional. They approached New Britannia with caution, broadcasting peaceful intentions on all frequencies. The Council monitored their transmissions as the ship entered the system. The crew reported normal readings. They detected human settlements on the planet below. They saw orbital stations and mining operations in the asteroid belt. Everything looked completely ordinary. Approaching the coordinates where the probes disappeared, the ship's captain reported. Sensors show nothing unusual in this region. No weapons platforms, no shield generators, no spatial anomalies. We are continuing forward. Then static. Just like the probes, the transmission cut off without warning. The Council's monitors showed the ship's transponder signal blinking steadily for 3 more seconds, then nothing. Emergency protocols activated across Council space. Kelrix demanded a full military investigation. Vorna called for caution. Other ambassadors argued among themselves about what the disappearances meant. It must be a weapon, insisted General Thrace of the Corvian Empire. The humans have developed some kind of weapon system that leaves no trace. This is a threat to all Council species. Or they are defending themselves, countered Ambassador CL of the Tlexian Federation. We sent ships into their territory without permission. Perhaps they see this as an invasion. But why not communicate? Vorna asked. Why not send a warning? Humanity has always used words first and force last. This silence is completely unlike them. In his private chambers, Kelrix reviewed the data from the lost ships. Something bothered him about the readings, though he could not identify what. The ships had not been destroyed by any weapon he recognized. They had not been captured or disabled. They had simply stopped being detectable by any means available to Council science. He called up historical records on humanity, searching for anything that might explain this behavior. Humans were argumentative, idealistic, and frustratingly persistent. They formed emotional attachments to causes and people in ways that other species found inefficient. They had fought countless wars among themselves before joining the galactic community, but they had always talked even while fighting. This silence was wrong. It contradicted everything in humanity's psychological profile. Humans did not simply stop communicating. They negotiated, debated, argued, and explained themselves constantly. Silence suggested something had changed fundamentally. Kelrix made his decision. The hegemony would assemble a battle fleet, not to attack, but to demonstrate strength. Humanity would either respond to a show of force or reveal whatever weapon they were hiding. Either way, the Council would have answers. He transmitted his plans to the Council, expecting opposition. Instead, he found agreement. Even the cautious species wanted resolution. The unknown was more frightening than any known threat. Only the Keeper's words echoed in the chamber's recordings, a warning that nobody wanted to hear. 2 were dying, One was preparing. Nobody asked which category humanity fell into. Nobody wanted to know the answer. 37 days after humanity's silence began, the galactic economy started to collapse. It happened slowly at first, like a building developing cracks before it fell. Then the cracks widened, and everyone realized how much they had depended on the humans without even knowing it. The trading houses of the merchant clans were the first to notice. Human traders had served as intermediaries between species who refused to deal with each other directly. The Corvian Empire would not trade with the Delphic Union because of some ancient insult. The crystalline collective considered the Virex hegemony to be barbaric. The smaller species feared dealing with the larger ones. Humans had solved this problem by buying goods from one species and selling them to another. They asked questions nobody else bothered with, like, "Why don't you talk to each other?" and "Isn't this inefficient?" Most species had found these questions annoying. Now they found the absence of human traders catastrophic. Shipments of medical supplies stopped reaching frontier colonies. Luxury goods piled up in warehouses because nobody knew how to transport them. Prices for basic resources began to climb as supply chains broke down. The humans had been the glue holding the galactic economy together, and nobody had realized it until the glue dissolved. "This is unacceptable," Ambassador Kelrix declared at the council session. 40 worlds are experiencing resource shortages. The hegemony has warehouses full of grain that should be feeding colonies on the rim, but we have no way to deliver it without human shipping routes. Perhaps if the hegemony had not tried to invade New Britannia, we would not be in this situation, CL suggested coldly. The Tlexian ambassador had grown sharper in her words as the crisis deepened. "You sent a battle fleet into human territory. What did you expect?" "I expected them to respond," Kelrix snapped. "To communicate, to make demands or issue threats or do something other than vanish our ships into whatever void they have created around their space." The Virex battle fleet had entered human space 16 days ago, 23 warships, the pride of the hegemony, carrying enough firepower to level a planet. They had approached New Britannia, broadcasting demands for the humans to explain their silence and their weapon systems. The fleet had reached the same boundary where the probes had disappeared. Every ship had gone dark simultaneously. No explosions, no energy signatures, no debris field. The entire fleet had simply ceased to exist in any detectable way. Kelrix had authorized a second fleet, even larger than the first. He refused to believe that humanity possessed technology so far beyond council understanding. There had to be an explanation, perhaps spatial anomalies, perhaps some kind of cloaking technology. Perhaps the ships were still there but unable to communicate. The second fleet had vanished just like the first. 46 warships, thousands of crew members gone without a trace. The hegemony's military commanders were growing nervous. Their political rivals were asking difficult questions. Kelrix needed answers, but the humans provided nothing except silence. Other problems emerged as the weeks passed. Without human mediators, old conflicts reignited. The Corvian Empire and the Delphic Union went to war over a disputed system, a border skirmish that humanity would have diffused with careful diplomacy in days. Now it threatened to drag in allied species and spread across a dozen systems. Pirate activity increased dramatically. Human patrol ships had been maintaining security on major trade routes, often working with other species' forces but providing crucial coordination. Without them, pirates operated freely. Merchant ships traveled in armed convoys or not at all. The council met every day now, emergency session after emergency session. Solutions were proposed and rejected. Some ambassadors wanted to declare human space off limits and rebuild the economy without them. Others insisted they needed to break through whatever barrier surrounded human territory and force a response. "We should send a delegation," High Speaker Vorna suggested. "Not a military force. True diplomats. Perhaps the humans see our ships as threats. We need to communicate peaceful intentions clearly." "We have been broadcasting peaceful intentions since this began," Kelrick said. "They ignore everything. Messages, trade proposals, requests for negotiation. The humans are completely silent. They have withdrawn from every galactic institution. They do not respond to any form of contact." Ambassador CL accessed her data tablet and projected information into the center of the chamber. "I have been reviewing records, historical records about humanity's first contact with the galactic community." The other ambassadors leaned forward to study the data. Most species' first contact followed a standard pattern. They developed faster-than-light travel, broadcasted greetings, and were welcomed into the galactic community. Some were more advanced than others, but the process was always similar. Humanity's first contact had been different. The records showed that humans had developed FTL travel and then gone silent for 3 years. They had not broadcasted any messages. They had not responded to council greetings. They had simply hidden in their home system, listening. During those 3 years, humanity had intercepted every council transmission. They had learned every major language in the galaxy. They had studied galactic politics, economics, and military capabilities. When they finally emerged and introduced themselves, they knew more about the council than most council species knew about each other. "They did this before," CL said quietly. "They went silent to listen and learn. Now they have done it again, but this time they already know our languages. What are they learning now?" The chamber fell silent. It was an uncomfortable thought. The humans had been members of the council for nearly 2 centuries. They had served on committees, participated in debates, and been present at countless sensitive discussions. They knew galactic secrets that were never supposed to be shared outside secure chambers. "That is why they are silent," CL continued. "They are not hiding from us. They are studying us, listening to what we say when we think they are not watching, and judging us." "Judging us?" Kelrix laughed, but it sounded forced. "They are one species. We are thousands. What gives them the right to judge?" CL met his eyes. "The same thing that gives them the ability to make 46 warships disappear without firing a shot." Commander Thess of the Crystalline Collective spoke for the first time in weeks. Her kind valued patience and observation above action. "I have reviewed the sensor data from every ship that entered human space. There is a pattern. The ships do not cross a border and then disappear. They travel several million kilometers into human territory, continuing to function normally. Then they vanish instantaneously, all at the same moment, regardless of their position or heading." She manipulated the holographic display, showing the ship's final trajectories. "This is not a weapon that destroys on contact. This is not a defensive perimeter. The humans let the ships enter their space, let them see their worlds functioning normally, and then remove them. This is deliberate, controlled. It is a message." "What message?" Vorna asked. "That they can make anything disappear whenever they choose," Thess replied. "That distance does not matter. That our shields and armor are irrelevant. They are demonstrating absolute power while maintaining absolute silence." The implications settled over the council like ice. If humanity could make ships vanish anywhere within their territory, what else could they do? Could they reach beyond their borders? Could they make anything disappear anywhere? Ambassador Kelrix felt cold sweat forming under his uniform. The hegemony had launched 2 fleets, thousands of his people, into human space based on the assumption that humanity was hiding, weak, or distracted. He had sent his people to their deaths, and he still did not understand how they had died. "We need to know what is happening inside human space," General Thrace said. "We need intelligence, data, anything. We are fighting an enemy we cannot see, do not understand, and cannot communicate with." "We are not fighting," CL corrected. "That is the problem. If this were a war, we would understand the rules. We would know what they want and what they are willing to do. But the humans have not declared war. They have not made demands. They have simply stopped talking to us while remaining active within their own space. The observation fleet's data confirmed this. Long-range scans, taken from outside the boundary where ships disappeared, showed human worlds functioning normally. Cities glowed with activity. Ships traveled between planets. Construction continued in orbital space. Humanity had not collapsed. They had not gone into hibernation. They were working, building, living, just not talking to anyone else. "What are they building?" Kelrix asked. "Our scans show massive construction projects on every human world. Space stations, shipyards, industrial facilities operating beyond their normal capacity. What are they preparing for?" Nobody had an answer. The humans built in silence, and the galaxy could only watch from a distance, unable to cross the invisible line that separated human space from everything else. Unable to communicate, unable to understand. In the council chamber, representatives of thousands of species argued and planned and worried. Outside, the galactic economy continued to crumble, conflicts continued to spread, and humanity remained silent, working toward some unknown goal that terrified everyone who thought about it too carefully. The Keeper attended the sessions now, its ancient presence a constant reminder of its warning. 2 species had gone silent while dying. 1 had gone silent while preparing. Everyone knew which category humanity belonged to. Nobody wanted to discuss what humanity was preparing for. On the 73rd day of silence, the Council authorized a final investigation mission. Not a military fleet, not another probe. A coalition of scientists and diplomats from 12 different species, approaching human space with every peaceful intention clearly broadcasted. They would observe, document, and attempt to understand what had happened to humanity. The mission was led by Ambassador CL of the Telexian Federation. She had volunteered against the advice of her government, insisting that someone needed to see the truth firsthand. If humanity had become a threat, they needed to know. If humanity was in trouble, they needed to help. The silence had gone on too long. The observation fleet consisted of 5 ships, each representing different aspects of galactic science. They carried the finest sensors, the most advanced analytical equipment, and representatives from species who had known humanity for generations. If anyone could solve the mystery, it would be this team. They approached the Sol system slowly, broadcasting messages of peace in every human language and dialect. They explained their mission repeatedly. They offered help, requested dialogue, and promised to withdraw if asked. The humans did not respond. Entering the boundary region, Captain Vex reported from the lead ship. He was Corvian, experienced in thousands of survey missions, and his calm voice steadied the nervous coalition. "Sensors are active, recording everything." The ships crossed into human space, all crew members tense and waiting for the vanishing point. It did not come immediately. They traveled for millions of kilometers, watching the Sol system grow larger in their displays. They could see Earth, the human homeworld, glowing with city lights. They saw Mars, terraformed and thriving. They observed the massive orbital stations around Jupiter and Saturn, industrial complexes that rivaled anything in Council space. "They are still active," one of the scientists breathed. "Look at the energy readings. They are building something enormous in Jupiter orbit. That structure must be hundreds of kilometers across." CL studied the data flowing across her screens. Human ships moved between the planets with purpose and coordination. They followed flight paths that suggested careful planning and constant communication. Whatever had happened to humanity, they had not descended into chaos. They were organized, controlled, working together toward something. "Try broadcasting again," CL ordered. "Tell them we come in peace. Tell them we want to understand. Tell them the galaxy is suffering without them." The communications officer sent the message. It reached Earth, bounced off human satellites, and was surely received by whoever was listening. No response came back. "They hear us," the officer said. "Our signals are being received and processed. They are just choosing not to answer." As they moved deeper into the Sol system, the sensors detected something strange. The space around human territory was wrong somehow, not visibly different, but the mathematical readings showed anomalies that made no sense. Space itself had been altered in ways that should not be possible with any known technology. Dr. Thessian, a crystalline physicist, examined the data with growing alarm. "This is not a weapon," she said. "This is engineering on a scale I have never seen. They have wrapped their entire territory in some kind of spatial manipulation field. It is like they have folded reality around themselves." "Can you explain that in simpler terms?" CL asked. "Imagine a piece of paper," Dr. Thessian said. "Now imagine folding it so that one edge touches another edge far away. The humans have done this with space itself. They have created a boundary that is both there and not there. When ships cross it, they do not disappear. They enter a different fold of reality." "Are you saying our ships are still there?" Captain Vex asked. "Just in another dimension?" "Not another dimension. The same space, but folded differently. The humans have learned to manipulate the structure of space-time itself. This technology is centuries beyond what the Council possesses. Maybe millennia." The implications of this were staggering. If humanity could fold space around their territory, what else could they do? Could they fold space anywhere? Could they move entire planets? Could they reach across the galaxy instantly? "This explains why they went silent," CL said quietly. "They discovered something. Some breakthrough in physics or engineering that changes everything. They needed time to implement it across all their worlds. Time without interference or questions or pressure from the Council." "But why not tell us?" one of the other ambassadors asked. "Why not share this discovery? The Council shares all major scientific advances." CL did not answer immediately. She was remembering conversations with human diplomats over the years. Their frustration with Council bureaucracy, their anger at species who exploited weaker ones, their constant pushing for reforms that other species resisted. Humanity had tried to change the galaxy through words and laws. Maybe they had decided that was not enough. "Take us closer to Earth," she ordered. "I want to see the home world." The fleet moved through the inner system, passing the orbit of Mars. Earth grew larger in their screens, blue and green and beautiful. They could see the continents, the oceans, the swirl of clouds in the atmosphere. They could see the lights of millions of cities brighter than ever before. But they also saw something else. Orbiting Earth were structures that had not existed 6 months ago. Massive rings that encircled the planet at various altitudes. Not defensive platforms, not weapons. They looked almost like sensor arrays, but on an impossible scale. "What are those?" Captain Vex asked. Dr. Thessian was already analyzing them. "They are monitoring stations, but not monitoring their own space. They are positioned to observe outward, to see everything in the galaxy." "Everything?" CL asked. "If these sensors have the range their power signatures suggest, yes. Everything. Every transmission, every ship movement, every conversation on every Council world. The humans have given themselves the ability to watch the entire galaxy simultaneously." The truth hit CL like a physical blow. This was why humanity had gone silent. They were not hiding. They were watching. They had stopped talking so they could listen to what everyone else said without them in the room. They were gathering information on a scale that made their earlier intelligence gathering look primitive. "How long have these been operational?" she asked. "Based on the construction signatures, I would estimate 60 days, Dr. Thessian said. "They built these during the silence. 60 days. 2 months of every species in the galaxy talking freely, assuming the humans were gone or distracted or dealing with internal problems." 2 months of private conversations, secret plans, and honest discussions about how they really felt about each other and about humanity. All of it monitored, recorded, analyzed. "We need to leave," CL said suddenly. "Now." "But we have not completed our investigation," Captain Vex protested. "We have learned enough. The humans are not in danger. They are not hiding. They are preparing for something, and we need to warn the Council before—" The ship's sensors screamed warnings. Space around them was changing, folding in ways that the instruments could not properly track. The observation fleet found itself surrounded by human vessels that had not been there a moment before. The human ships were unlike anything in Council records. They were smooth and dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and they moved without any visible propulsion system. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer said, her voice shaking. A human face appeared on every screen. It was a woman, middle-aged, with tired eyes and gray hair. She wore a simple uniform with no insignia. She looked like someone who had not slept properly in months. "Ambassador CL," the woman said. "I am Director Chen of the Human Coordination Authority. Your investigation is appreciated but unnecessary. We have observed your approach, recorded your transmissions, and understand your concerns. We will provide answers, but not here and not now." "Why did you go silent?" CL asked immediately. "Why stop all communication?" "Because talking had failed," Director Chen replied. "For 2 centuries we participated in council debates. We proposed reforms. We argued for justice and equality and rights for smaller species. We were voted down, ignored, or told to be patient. We realized that the galaxy does not change through conversation with humans. It changes through conversations without us." "What does that mean?" "It means we stopped talking and started listening. For 73 days, we have monitored every transmission in council space. We have recorded every private conversation, every secret negotiation, every honest discussion that ambassadors have when they think nobody important is watching. We have learned what you really think, what you really plan, what you really are." The director's face remained calm, but her eyes were cold. "You are going to return to council space now. Your ships will be escorted to the boundary and released unharmed. You will tell the Council that humanity is well, that we are not a threat, and that we will communicate when we are ready. Do you understand?" "And if we refuse?" CL asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then you will remain here until we decide otherwise. You entered our space without permission. You are guests who have overstayed their welcome, but we are not barbarians. We will send you home safely." The human ships moved closer, surrounding the observation fleet in a formation that was clearly not aggressive, but absolutely controlling. The message was clear. Humanity could move their ships anywhere instantly. They could appear and disappear at will. They controlled space itself within their territory. "I will relay your message," CL said, "but the Council will want answers. They will want to know what you are planning. They will receive answers," Director Chen promised. "In time. When we are ready. Until then, the silence continues." The transmission ended. The human ships began moving, and the observation fleet found itself being guided back toward the boundary of human space. Not pushed, not forced. Simply guided with the same certainty that one might guide children away from danger. As they crossed back into normal space, CL reviewed everything they had learned. The spatial manipulation, the monitoring stations, the impossible ships. Most disturbing of all, Director Chen's words about listening and learning what the Council really was. What had humanity heard in 73 days of unlimited surveillance? What secrets had been exposed? What plots had been revealed? And what did humanity plan to do with that information? The observation fleet returned to Council space carrying news that terrified everyone who heard it. Humanity had not withdrawn from galactic affairs. They had positioned themselves to watch everything, know everything, and presumably act on that knowledge when they chose. The galaxy was being observed by a species that had mastered technologies nobody understood, and nobody knew what humanity would do next. The only certainty was that the silence would end. The question was what would happen when humanity finally spoke again. The council chamber had never been so crowded. Every species with voting rights had sent representatives. Even the minor members who rarely attended had dispatched observers. Everyone wanted to hear Ambassador Ciel's report about what she had found in human space. Ciel stood at the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes on her. She had spent 3 days preparing this presentation, reviewing every piece of data her team had collected. The truth was worse than anyone had imagined, and she was not sure how to deliver it without causing panic. Humanity is not in crisis, she began. They have not collapsed. They have not withdrawn from galactic affairs. They have repositioned themselves to observe us with total awareness while remaining hidden from our understanding. The chamber erupted in questions and protests. Ciel raised her hands for silence and continued. They have developed technology that allows them to manipulate space itself. They can fold reality around their territory, making their ships appear and disappear at will. More importantly, they have surrounded Earth with monitoring stations that can observe the entire galaxy simultaneously. She displayed the data on the central hologram. The massive sensor rings around Earth, the strange human ships that moved without visible propulsion, the spatial anomalies that defied every law of physics the Council understood. For the past 73 days, humanity has been listening to everything we say, every transmission, every private conversation, every secret we thought was protected. They have recorded it all. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Ambassador Kelrick stood, his face dark with anger. This is an act of war. They are spying on every council species. They have violated our privacy, our sovereignty, our rights as independent civilizations. We must respond with force. With what force? Commander Thess asked quietly. We sent 46 warships into their territory. All vanished without a trace. Our weapons are useless against technology we cannot understand or counter. Then we build more ships, Kelrick shouted. We assemble a fleet from every council species, thousands of ships. They cannot make all of us disappear. Can't they? Ciel asked. Director Chen, the human I spoke with, told me they stopped talking because talking had failed. They tried to change the galaxy through debate and laws for 2 centuries. Now they are taking a different approach. They are learning what we really are when we think they are not listening. High Speaker Vorna leaned forward, her expression troubled. What do you mean by what we really are? Ciel hesitated. This was the part she had been dreading. I believe humanity has recorded everything said in council space for over 2 months. That includes conversations in this chamber, private communications between ambassadors, secret negotiations, treaties made without public knowledge, everything that happens when people believe they are speaking privately. The implications rippled through the chamber like ice water. How many secret deals had been made in the past 2 months? How many private conversations between ambassadors had revealed information that was never meant to be public? How many species had said things about their allies that would destroy those alliances if revealed? Kelrix sat down slowly, his anger replaced by visible fear. The Vrex hegemony had made numerous secret agreements during humanity's silence, plans to expand into disputed territories, negotiations with pirate groups, discussions about overthrowing inconvenient governments on minor worlds. If humanity had recorded all of that. What do they want? General Thrace asked. If they have all this information, what are they planning to do with it? Director Chen said they would provide answers when they are ready, Ciel replied. Until then, the silence continues. That is unacceptable, Kelrick said, trying to regain his composure. We cannot simply wait for humanity to decide what to do with us. We need to act. We need to demonstrate that the Council will not be intimidated. The hegemony has already demonstrated that, CL said coldly. You sent 2 fleets. Both vanished. How many more of your people are you willing to sacrifice to prove a point? The argument continued for hours. Some species wanted immediate military action. Others counseled patience. A few suggested trying to negotiate, though nobody could explain how to negotiate with someone who refused to talk. The meeting ended without resolution, and the ambassadors returned to their private chambers to worry. In those private chambers, conversations occurred that would once have been considered secure. Ambassadors discussed strategies, shared concerns, and made plans. None of them seemed to realize, or perhaps they simply could not accept, that every word was being recorded by the humans they were trying to stop. The galaxy continued to fracture. The war between the Corvian Empire and the Delphic Union spread to 3 more systems. Trade remained disrupted. Pirate attacks increased. Resource shortages became critical on frontier worlds. The systems that humanity had once managed were descending into chaos. Some species began investigating their own records of humanity's time in the Council. They looked for clues about what the humans might be planning. What they found was disturbing. Humanity had always asked questions. They wanted to know why certain species were excluded from important committees. They challenged decisions that seemed arbitrary or unjust. They represented smaller species who had no voice in Council proceedings. Most species had found this annoying. Now they realized humanity had been documenting everything, building cases, gathering evidence of every injustice and failure in the galactic system. A young Telexian diplomat named Kessa made a discovery that changed everything. She had been reviewing archived communications from human ambassadors over the decades. She found a pattern. Every time humans proposed reforms, they cited specific examples of Council failures. Every time they argued for rights for smaller species, they provided detailed evidence of exploitation. They were building a case, Kessa told Ambassador CL. Not just for the past 2 months, for 2 centuries. They have been documenting every failure, every corruption, every abuse of power in Council space. They have been waiting for the right moment to present it. Present it to whom? CL asked. To everyone. To the species who have no voice in the Council. To the populations on minor worlds who do not even know how decisions that affect their lives are made. Humanity has always represented the smaller species. What if they are preparing to give those species the information they need to demand change? CL felt cold understanding settle over her. They are going to expose us. Everything we have done. Every secret deal, every exploitation, every time we have chosen power over justice. They will give that information to everyone we have been keeping it from. Can they do that? Kessa asked. They control information transmission now. They can send messages anywhere in the galaxy instantly with their spatial manipulation technology. Yes, they can do it. And there is nothing we can do to stop them. The Council held emergency sessions daily now, but the debates went in circles. Military action was impossible. Negotiation was impossible. They could only wait while humanity prepared whatever revelation was coming. Some species began trying to hide evidence of their past actions. They deleted files, destroyed records, and intimidated witnesses. It was useless. If humanity had been monitoring them for 2 months and documenting them for 2 centuries, the evidence already existed beyond their reach. Ambassador Kelrick spent his days in growing terror. The hegemony had done so many things that would not survive public exposure. Wars started on false pretenses, colonies exploited for resources, species forced into unfair treaties. If humanity revealed everything, the hegemony would face revolts from a dozen subject species. We should negotiate, Kelrick said at the next council session. His earlier bravado completely gone. We should send ambassadors to Earth, offer them anything they want, credits, territory, technology, anything. We need to convince them to keep our secrets. They do not want credits or territory, CL said. They want something we cannot give them. They want the galaxy to change. They want justice and equality and rights for species we have been exploiting for generations. We cannot negotiate that away." The Keeper spoke then, its ancient voice cutting through the desperate chatter. "You are afraid of what you have done being exposed. This is wise. But consider what happens if humanity's revelations succeed, if the smaller species demand change, if the populations on exploited worlds revolt, if the entire structure of council power is overturned. Are you prepared for that galaxy?" "Better that than being controlled by humans," General Thrace muttered. "They are not controlling you," the Keeper replied. "They are simply refusing to remain silent while you control others. There is a difference." High Speaker Vorna stood, her expression weary. "Perhaps we should prepare for what is coming rather than trying to prevent it. If humanity has evidence of wrongdoing, perhaps we should begin addressing those wrongs before we are forced to. We could announce reforms, grant rights to smaller species, create transparency in our proceedings." "So we should change our entire civilization because humanity demands it?" Kelrix asked. "That is exactly the control the Keeper claims they are not exerting." "No," Vorna said, "we should change because it is right. Because the system we have built is unjust. Because humanity has been telling us this for 2 centuries and we refuse to listen. Maybe their silence is the only way to make us hear." The debate continued, but something had shifted. More ambassadors were willing to consider change, not because they suddenly believed in justice, but because they were terrified of what would happen if they did not act first. It was pragmatism dressed as morality, but Ciel wondered if that mattered. Change was change, regardless of motivation. As the council session ended, Ciel returned to her quarters and composed a message. She addressed it to Director Chen, though she had no way to send it. She simply recorded it and hoped that humanity's monitoring systems would pick it up. "You have made your point," she said to the recording. "The galaxy is afraid of what you will reveal. Some species are already discussing reforms, but I must ask, when you finally speak, will you offer us a chance to change, or will you simply tear everything down and force your vision on us? Because one is justice, the other is tyranny, regardless of how noble your intentions." She did not expect an answer, but she needed to say it, needed to believe that humanity was still listening for the right reasons rather than simply asserting power. The silence offered no comfort, it offered no answers, it simply continued, while the galaxy waited in fear for humanity to decide what came next. On the 365th day of silence, exactly 1 year after humanity stopped talking, every communications array in the galaxy activated simultaneously. It did not matter if the systems were active or dormant, encrypted or open, public or private. Every device capable of receiving transmissions received the same message at the exact same moment. Ambassador Ciel was in her quarters when it happened. Her personal terminal, her official communicator, and even the small entertainment screen in her sleeping area all switched on without her touching them. A human face appeared, the same Director Chen she had met in human space a year ago. The woman looked older now, more tired, but her eyes were clear and determined. "People of the galaxy," Chen began, speaking in every language simultaneously through technology that should not exist. "For 1 year, humanity has been silent. We stopped talking to you. We started listening. We have monitored every transmission in council space. We have recorded every conversation, public and private. We have documented everything you said when you thought we were not watching. Now it is time to share what we learned." Ciel's hands shook as she activated her official terminal, connecting to the council emergency channel. Every ambassador was online, every species representative, every government official across thousands of worlds. All of them watching the same broadcast, powerless to stop it. "We went silent because talking had failed," Chen continued. For 2 centuries, humanity participated in council debates. We proposed reforms to protect smaller species. We argued against exploitation and injustice. We were voted down, dismissed, or told to be patient. We realized that you heard our words but never our meaning. So we stopped speaking and started listening. The screen split into thousands of windows, each showing different recorded conversations. Council members discussing how to manipulate votes. Ambassadors plotting against allied species. Military commanders planning invasions of neutral territories. Corporate representatives coordinating price fixing that would starve frontier colonies. Every conversation was time-stamped, sourced, and verified. This is what we heard while you thought we were gone, Chen said. This is what you really believe, what you really plan, how you really treat the species who have no power to resist you. Ciel watched in horror as recordings played of conversations she recognized. She saw Ambassador Kelrix discussing how to fabricate evidence that would justify invading a minor species' territory. She saw council members laughing about protests from smaller species who wanted representation. She saw herself in one clip agreeing to ignore a complaint from an exploited colony because investigating it would be politically inconvenient. The broadcast was not just reaching government officials. It was going to every populated world in the galaxy. Billions of people on thousands of planets were watching their leaders' secrets being exposed simultaneously. The smaller species who had no voice in council proceedings were seeing proof of how they had been manipulated and exploited. The populations on major worlds were learning what their governments really did in their names. We have 2 centuries of documentation, Chen said. This is just a sample. Everything will be made available through public channels, every secret. Every manipulation, every crime committed by those who claim to govern justly, you will all see what your leaders are. The communications channels exploded with reactions, outrage, denial, panic. Some officials claimed the recordings were fake. Others blamed their advisors or subordinates. A few, very few, admitted the truth and resigned immediately. The galaxy was learning what its leaders really were, and that knowledge was destroying trust faster than any weapon could. But we are not here simply to expose, Chen continued. We are here to offer a choice. The current system is broken. It serves the powerful while exploiting the weak. It maintains peace through intimidation rather than justice. It must change. We will ensure that it does. New images appeared on the screens. Human ships, thousands of them, emerging from fold space above every major council world. They did not approach aggressively. They simply appeared, hovering in orbit, a silent reminder of humanity's technological superiority. Above Earth, the massive monitoring stations pulsed with light, demonstrating that humanity could see everything, everywhere. We will enforce peace, Chen declared. We will guarantee rights. We will protect the species who cannot protect themselves. You have proven you cannot govern with wisdom or justice, so humanity will do it for you, not through conquest, not through occupation, but through presence and through information. The screen showed more recordings. Secret weapons programs, plans for genocide against inconvenient populations, treaties designed to trap smaller species in permanent debt. Evidence of crimes so vast that Ciel felt physically sick watching them, and all of it sourced, verified, undeniable. We are establishing the Human Oversight Authority, Chen said. It will operate independently of the Council. It will monitor all galactic governments. It will publicize injustice. It will protect the powerless. And it will use force if necessary to prevent atrocities. Ambassador Kelrix appeared on the Council Emergency Channel, his face pale. This is tyranny. They are declaring themselves rulers of the galaxy. We must resist. With what? Commander Thess asked. They control space itself. They see everything. They can be anywhere instantly. How exactly do we resist? We cannot accept this, Kelrix insisted. We are sovereign species. We have rights. They cannot simply impose their will on us because they have superior technology. You imposed your will on smaller species for exactly that reason, CL said quietly. For generations. Now someone with superior technology is imposing their will on you. How does it feel? The broadcast continued. Chen's face returned to the center of the screen, and her expression softened slightly. We do not want to rule you. We want you to rule yourselves justly. We will provide transparency. We will ensure accountability. What you do with that information is your choice. But understand this, the silence is over. We are watching now, always. The transmission ended. The screens across the galaxy went dark, but the damage was done. Within hours, protests erupted on dozens of council worlds. Populations demanded explanations from their governments. Smaller species that had been exploited began organizing resistance. The carefully maintained power structure of galactic civilization began to crack. In the council chamber, ambassadors gathered in emergency session, but nobody knew what to do. Military action was impossible. Lying was useless when humanity had recordings of everything. The only option was to accept humanity's oversight or face revolt from their own populations, who now knew the truth. We could reform, High Speaker Vorna said. Grant representation to smaller species. Establish transparency in our proceedings. Punish those who committed crimes. Show humanity that we can govern justly without their oversight. It is too late for that, General Thrace said bitterly. They have already positioned themselves as guardians of the galaxy. Even if we reform, they will claim credit. They have won. Have they? The Keeper asked. The ancient being had been silent throughout the broadcast, but now it spoke with something that might have been approval. Humanity has not conquered you. They have given information to those who needed it. They have offered protection to those who had none. They have forced accountability on those who refused it. Is this victory or service? It is control, Kelrix snapped, dressed up as morality. They are dictating terms to the entire galaxy. They are preventing you from dictating terms to species weaker than yourselves, CL said. Perhaps that is the same thing from your perspective. She thought about Director Chen's final words. We are watching now. Always. It was a threat and a promise. Humanity would no longer participate in the system as it existed. They would hover above it, monitoring, judging, and intervening when necessary. They had made themselves the conscience the galaxy had never wanted. The days that followed were chaotic. Some governments fell to protests. Others implemented desperate reforms. A few tried to continue as before and found themselves exposed by new revelations from humanity's archives. The smaller species, armed with information about how they had been exploited, began demanding justice and receiving it for the first time in generations. Human ships remained in orbit above major worlds, silent observers that could act if needed, but preferred not to. The monitoring stations around Earth pulsed steadily, a reminder that nothing was hidden anymore. The galaxy was being forced to be honest with itself, and the process was painful. Ambassador CL stood at the window of her quarters, looking up at the human ship that orbited her homeworld. She had received a private message from Director Chen, a response to her recording from months ago. The message was simple. We are offering a chance to change. Whether that change comes from choice or necessity is up to you. But it will come. The galaxy deserves better than what you have given it. CL wanted to be angry. She wanted to resent humanity's assumption of authority. But she kept thinking about the recordings she had seen. The crimes committed in the name of stability. The species exploited for profit. The voices silenced for convenience. Humanity had not created those problems. They had simply refused to ignore them any longer. In the council chamber, debates continued about how to respond to humanity's oversight. But everyone knew the truth. The old system was gone. The galaxy, where powerful species could do as they pleased, while weaker ones suffered in silence, had ended. Humanity had gone silent to learn the truth, and now that truth was forcing change, whether anyone wanted it or not. The Keeper spoke one final time before leaving the council forever. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have watched empires claim to bring order while creating chaos. Humanity is young. Their methods are imperfect. But they are the first species I have encountered who gained power and chose to use it to protect the powerless rather than exploit them further. Perhaps that is the definition of wisdom. Ambassador Kelrix spent his final days in office trying to organize resistance to human oversight. But his own people, learning what he had done in their name, removed him from power. The Vrex hegemony fractured as subject species demanded independence, armed with evidence of every crime committed against them. Across the galaxy, similar stories played out. Some species accepted the new reality gracefully. Others fought against it and lost. A few embraced the changes and found that governing justly was not as difficult as they had claimed when they were governing selfishly. Humanity did not celebrate their victory. They had not sought power for its own sake. They had gone silent because they had grown tired of speaking into the void. They had listened because listening revealed truth that speaking never could. And they had acted because someone needed to, and nobody else would. The monitoring stations around Earth continued their endless watch. Human ships remained present but distant. The galaxy learned to live under constant observation, to govern knowing that every decision would be seen and judged. Some called it tyranny. Others called it justice. Most simply called it the new reality and adapted as best they could. In her final report as a council ambassador, CL wrote, "Humanity has imposed peace through information and presence. They have forced us to be the civilization we always claimed to be but never were. History will debate whether this was right, but it is done. The silence has ended, but its lesson remains. Actions speak louder than words. And someone is always listening." The galaxy held its breath, no longer in fear, but in anticipation of what would come next. Humanity had refused to speak, and in that silence, everything had changed. Now they watched, guided, and protected. The question was not whether humanity would continue this role, but whether the galaxy would learn to govern itself justly enough that humanity's oversight would no longer be necessary. Only time would answer that question. And humanity, patient and watchful, had all the time in the world.